It's spinning. It's spinning.
It says it's live on my end.
Yeah, it's it.
But I think that's just live as in we're recording, not live as in we're live on YouTube.
Yeah.
But let's see.
Hold on, I gotta reset. I gotta reboot here. Hold on.
Okay.
It's being weird. Wait, no.
Did you plug the red thing into the blue thing?
No, literally everything like lagged out, and I'm like, it's like we're having a problem doing this, and this isn't working. Everything lagged out, and then now I'm looking, and it says we've been live for a minute.
Hi guys.
Hi everybody.
Boy, oh boy. All right, let's do the thing, shall we?
Click.
Take two. Well, we can't do take two because we're live. Just do it. Just do the thing. All right. And you thought the Clone Wars couldn't get any weirder. Well, think again. This week we've got a frog general, droids with attitude, R2-D2 going on a suicide mission, and somehow it all works out. It's the Clone Wars Season 5, Episodes 10, 11, 12, 13 this week on your Star Wars Safe Space. Stick around. Hey there, Star Wars. Welcome to Star Wars Safe Space, your non-toxic, low-sodium Star Wars show that doesn't make you feel bad for not knowing that Chewbacca was inspired by George Lucas's dog, a sweet little Malamute named Indiana. Indiana? You named the dog Indiana. It's just, I love it. The Lucas universe is just all tied together. So whether you're a hardcore Star Wars fan or just a little sporsy curious, this is your Star Wars Safe Space. Welcome. We are the Circle of Nerds, and we do absolutely love Star Wars, even if we don't always like it. So let's go around and meet the crew, shall we? There we go. Pilot of the infamous Parma Flyer, it's Crash.
How's it going, everybody? We're in prime form tonight. Espo is locked and ready to go.
We're just a rag bad tag band of misfits. I can't even speak. I swear I've done this before. And from parts unknown, it's T to the Oni.
Welcome back to the galaxy, everybody. Apparently we are having a guest host with us today, our good friend Technical Difficulties, but we're here. We're doing it. Let's go.
All right. And we would be remiss if we didn't. There we go. And from all the parts, it's a technical difficulty. There they are right there. Just a blank screen. Gotta love it. All right. So what are we doing here? Well, our mission is to watch all of the canon Star Wars films and TV shows in chronological order, breaking them down, connecting the dots, and learning more about Star Wars and maybe even a little bit about ourselves. And a word of warning to all you would-be Star Warriors, there will be spoilers. So please be prepared for that. If you haven't caught up with where we are right now on our current journey, get caught up. Hit pause. Go watch the last 4 episodes of the Season 5 The Clone Wars, episodes 10, 11, 12, 13, and then come on back. We'll be here. All right. So we're going to get into these episodes, but first, we've got a little news, right?
It was a busy week for
Little.
It has been a busy week for Star Wars. So who wants to take it? Because I mean, I'm geeked out about the Tales of the Underworld trailer. Andor's right around the corner.
Oh man, that one I'm getting excited about because the first season was so good. And I'm not one of those people that are like, Andor is peak Star. It was good. It was damn good. And I like the fact that we're starting to mesh that show with Rogue One. And that's where the connections are going to start coming in. And that's my jam.
And what really kind of sucks about Andor, Andor doesn't suck, but what sucks about Andor is that they're creating these characters that we're growing attached to, and we're learning more about, and it just makes Rogue One that much more difficult to watch. So it's like now going back, rewatching the Clone Wars. A lot of this is new territory for Tony. but like I haven't watched the Clone Wars in, I don't know, probably like 10 years. Maybe not quite that long, but it's been a while. It's been several years since I watched the Clone Wars, especially this season 5 that we're in right now. It's been a long time since I've seen season 5. So watching the arc this week, there were a lot of moments I didn't remember initially. So I was like, wait, what? What's it? Wait, oh, no, oh, But then I know about the fate of certain other characters and things like that. So it wasn't too much. Sherry, on the other hand, because we always watch together, Sherry is not aware of the fate of certain characters at this point. So she was a bit heartbroken at the end of this arc.
And it just reinforced, like, I'm almost like a yearly rewatch kind of guy. So okay. I'm well versed with this show, and watching that moment that we're going to talk about, not knowing at the time, when it first aired, there were moments where, I'm either like level up here, happy, or down here, just like distraught. And that was one of those, right. Just like, that right in the feels.
Right in the feels. And that's the thing about the Clone Wars. It's like, it kind of, sometimes it just plods along, and it can be a chore to get through. Like the first episode in this arc. Yeah. The being in the void, the first episode in this arc, it was a bit of a slog. I kind of felt like we were in season 1 again. I get it. You got to lay the foundation, of course. But then, we get to the city and things start to pick up a little bit. And then, we continue on and things start to pick up. So, it wasn't bad. Tony, we're going to start with you this week, 'cause I want to hear your thoughts on this, this arc, but we've got to talk about, Tales. Let me get it. Let me get this added here. We've got to talk about Tales of the Underworld. Should we just roll the trailer?
Yeah, let's just take a look at it, and then we'll kind of play it again and maybe discuss.
All right, here we go. Stand by for all of our podcast listener. I'm glad you're able to watch along with us on Spotify or wherever you're listening to us. I'm sorry, this is so dumb to do this. But we're live streaming.
It'll sound awesome. Just go with it.
It'll sound awesome. Yeah, because whoever put this trailer together, bravo. Because it is so good. All right, let's go. Let's do it.
Just do as I say. Never can be too cautious with strangers out here. Then again, you're no stranger. Lady Ventress.
Oh, it looks so good. So many questions.
And what's great is we know from past seasons that they'll overlap these two characters like throughout their lives.
Yeah,
like the Dooku arc. It hopped a few years at a time, but it would hold kind of a story throughout. I'm really looking forward to seeing more of Bane's backstory.
Look at Baby Bane. We had Baby Bane.
I was Count Dooku's lead assassin.
And everybody after Bad Batch was asking what's going to happen to Ventress. So this is a great addition without having to pull a whole series out to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Great cut there. I just juxtaposition there. It's just great.
No one needs to die.
Interesting saber color for Asajj as well.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Almost like a square hilt.
Here, listen. Just hold on. Listen.
You're gonna pay for what you did. I hope it was worth it. It will be.
Corey Burton's just got such a great voice for that character. It's just.
So I like that little. It will be potentially a bit of a throwback to Yoda.
Mm-hmm.
there. I'm not afraid. You will be. You will be. But like, just whoever put that together, I don't know if it was a team or one person, but just the audio design of it, like the sound effects going in time to the music, it was just, the first time I watched it, it was just a work of art, and I absolutely loved it. So thoughts on the trailer, and we'll just run it in the background here because why not?
Okay.
Disney, we're not doing this to get money. We're doing this because we love you. So please don't hit us with a cease and desist, because that wouldn't be cool, because we love you.
So yeah, Tony, what did you think of this?
I mean, I know what timelines look like, even though this is not my field of expertise. But I just want to say, I feel like somebody needs to cut us a royalty check, because we've talked about this well before this announcement came out. So
I
somebody's
mentioned that on Facebook. I was like, you talk about something long enough, you just manifest it, and they're like, Dave, if you're listening, you're welcome.
You know what? Honestly, it's I don't even want the money. Can I just go to Galaxy's Edge, please? Or I mean,
right.
Can we be background players, day players? Can we be extras, like in some cantina somewhere? I just want like an official canonized action figure of us. I think that would be cool. Like get a cantina play set with all of us in it.
There you go.
Hell yeah.
And like Cad Bane is like, he's just classic Western bad guy, and it's going to be so fun to see. We've seen the Han Solo Western. It's going to be fun seeing it from the point of view of the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and maybe learning how he became the bad guy, or maybe he always was the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, did the worm turn for him, or was he just a bad seed from the start?
Yeah, and conversely, Ventress, who we associate with the bad guy, for as grouchy as she gets, is she developing a lighter side? Is she developing a little good nature in her?
She's got a conscience.
Yeah.
She definitely grew a conscience. Maybe
she got a little Kenobi in her. I mean,
I don't know. Like we're seeing. Obviously this is Imperial era, so I'm wondering how far into Imperial era this is. So Kenobi is obviously is Kenobi no longer with us at this point, or is he still on Tatooine? Because it would be nice to maybe see Obi-Wan,
because we see her in Bad Batch with this. This might be after she's encountered the Bad Batch, and now she's off doing things. But that show went like the epilogue went well into the Rebellion era. So there's a whole gap of time where she could be roaming around and no one knows it.
Right. And getting into all kinds of trouble and adventures. I'm still hoping for a live action version of Asajj. I don't know who would play her. I after watching Fury Road,
mm-hmm.
I was thinking Charlize Theron. I think she could probably handle it. I mean, she's if we're talking about Asajj during the time of the Mandoverse, Charlize is old enough to play the role, because Asajj will be older. And we've already seen that Charlize is not afraid of action, and she can kick some fucking ass. So
and she's already semi part of the Disney family, because she's in the MCU briefly, so it wouldn't be hard to bring her over into Star Wars.
And she looks good. She would look good with that haircut. She looks good bald, but she would look good with that haircut. So, but can she like pull off, like, Asajj is a complex character, and I'm glad that we're getting to see that. She still feels like cold and slimy at the same time, but I would still totally take her out for a cup of coffee.
And like for as much as we talk about Ahsoka is Dave's creation, Ventress, was there before Dave came along, but I think he sort of perfected it. He perfected the character. It was more than just a chick with two lightsabers and an attitude. There's a lot of depth to her that we discover in Clone Wars, And I think now we're going beyond that, where we're going to see how she grows post Clone Wars.
And that is, I think, in large part thanks to Dave giving her that room to breathe and to grow as a character, and not just, you know, making her like a one-off throwaway, you know, bad guy of the week sort of character. You know, I mean, she, you know, quote unquote died during the micro series, and she was resurrected, and then she disappeared and was resurrected, and now she's being resurrected again. So Asajj will not go quietly into the night. Yes, sir.
Quick question with this: the guy that announces Lady Ventress, is that supposed to be Lauren?
I don't know. Yeah,
let's see,
because it looks an awful lot like him. Assuming that he ages, you know, as all the other characters do.
Maybe.
At this point, anything's possible.
Yeah.
Well, we sure.
Anything's possible. I just know that May 4th, I'm taking May 3rd and May 5th off of work. So I will be putting in sick leave for those days. So it is a
you come down the 24-hour case of the blue shadow virus. Is that it?
Yeah, exactly. Oh God, not the blue shadow virus. I mean, I still want to live, Crash. I still want to walk among the living. No, I don't know. Maybe I'll just come down with a case of like bantha bumps or something. I don't know.
There you go.
I'm not well versed in the diseases of Star Wars. I guess maybe I could look into that, but and who's the red sabered person? Who the fuck is that?
Well, the
Inquisitor.
You know, I have a feeling it's going to be a new Inquisitor. You know, they've sort of teased that Vader has this, like, you know, there's a few we've seen in other shows briefly. That, like, I remember that one big dude from Ahsoka's arc in Tales of the Jedi. I don't remember his name, but Clancy Brown did the voice.
Yeah,
and it's like, it was a great, like, oh, who's this guy? Oh, and he's gone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just think this is going to be great. I'm looking forward to it. Now, before we get into the episodes, what other tales would you guys like to see?
Well, now that they've done Underworld, there's just so much room to work. I mean, you could do Tales of the Resistance. You could do Tales of the First Order. I mean, you could cover everything in small. You know, there's so many characters from the sequel trilogy alone that never got a reasonable. This would be a great way to bring John Boyega back into the house. You know what I mean? After, you know, the recent comments about that he made, and it stirs up controversy, usually by the exact people we're talking about, the theorists out there.
Yeah,
but I had some good conversations with friends. I talked to one friend of mine. I asked him what did he think, being an African American, and he's like, "I totally agree with him." And I got a quote I wanted to read from Larry. His name's Larry. He said, "It's funny because you don't notice it until it's called out, but you were introduced to it as a kid, so everything in the galaxy far, far away being either white or alien was normal." And I'm like, okay. That tracks with what John was saying. And he said this in other interviews. It's just because this new documentary was coming out, it made press, and then everybody, you know, quotes and misquotes the context of it. But if you think about it, he's got a point. Finn got a really short stick in the sequel trilogy. And you can question the motives. Is it an industry? I don't think it's a Lucasfilm problem as much as it is a society and an industry problem. But I think what he said was very brave to come out and say, look, it's okay if I'm the best friend to the hero, but, you know, because people all the time say, oh, we'd love to see Finn as a Jedi. I would too, but I don't know if you could, you know, after what they did to him in the sequel trilogy as an actor, you know, are you going to go through the bad press and the heckling you get from certain people to put out a story about Finn, or would you do it in something like Tales where you could bring him in as a voice, cover a span of his life, and maybe show him following a Jedi path?
Yeah, I think, you know, and without getting, you know, because we don't want to get too far into the weeds on real world stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that ultimately the failing was with the sequel trilogy. There were too many hands at the helm.
Mhm.
And I think ultimately we had this great character Finn that was underutilized. We really didn't get to see Finn shine. And initially, all of the media that went out, it seemed like Finn was going to be a much bigger character than he was. First of all, we've got a stormtrooper of color.
Mhm.
And then we see him with a lightsaber later on. It's like, what is this guy's story? And he does kind of end up getting relegated to a sidekick with two kind of weird romantic-ish arcs that just don't go anywhere, and then comes back and felt like an afterthought. So so there's a lot of potential reasons for that. But I think if we're looking at it in universe context,
Mhm.
and if we look at it in terms of, and it's easy for me to say this because people who look like me are represented, so it's very easy for me to say this from this perspective as someone that comes from a well-represented group. So I see things with different eyes, of course. If you look at the galaxy, if you look at human beings, period, white, black, whatever, they are in the minority. We're seeing it because it's a human story, but when the gang walks into Chalum's Cantina for the very first time, they're the only human. Well, there's a couple others, but for the most part, that cantina, the vast majority were alien species, alien races. So human beings seem to be a smaller minority in the galaxy at large. Because you think about it, when Obi-Wan and Anakin go to a planet, it's a planet entirely peopled with a different species. So human beings, whatever their color happens to be, it seems like they are the minority group. Yet, if we want to really look at things socially, they're the ruling group of the galaxy.
You see that in Andor, because Andor has a very limited number of aliens represented on screen, and that could be part of the Empire's humanophobia, xenophobia about alien species. The humans get front and center.
Yes.
But yeah, I think
and
for
also,
somebody like Finn, it was a tragedy in that there's so much they were trying to cover that he got the short end of the storyline stick. And it's one of those things. Star Wars is thought of as a trilogy. You'd almost have to do a Harry Potter level number of movies to give everybody equal or significant story time in the 2.5 hour movie times 3 movies, which is the beauty of what these Disney Plus shows are. You couldn't do a movie about Boba Fett wanting to get out of the bounty hunting business. It wouldn't play as a mega blockbuster, but it's a great story arc. And you can tell it in movie level production and quality in a 6-7 episode miniseries on Disney Plus, and it should have gotten more positive reviews than it did.
Well, I mean, the Book of Boba Fett, it had missteps as well, obviously, but again, looking at it through my lens, it seemed like for Book of Boba Fett, there was a really nice range of representation there.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't just this group of white kids jumping in the van and saving the galaxy. It was, it wasn't the Scooby Gang, solving mysteries. It wasn't this homogenous group. You had the diversity there in the Book of Boba, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And again, not to get too much into the real world weeds, but could that have been part of the reason for the backlash? Because we heard a lot from the fandom menace at that time when Book of Boba came out. I think some of the complaints were, that's not my Boba Fett. We saw Boba presenting in a certain way during The Mandalorian. That's our Boba Fett. But that was a Boba Fett who was on a mission. He wanted to get his fucking dad's armor back. he got his armor back. He was able to like let loose some of that pent up energy that he had on those poor stormtroopers. And then now maybe it's time to kick back and retire and collect this, this nice fat, crime lord check. That's not to say that Boba Fett's still not a badass. This is just another facet of the diamond that is Boba Fett.
And just the fact that he was a bounty hunter who wanted to be more and also did away with a lot of the seedier side of job. He got rid of the spice trade. He got he found out the kids, the speeder kids were unemployed, so he said, okay, you work for me now. Now he's got he was building a community. You wouldn't think of a guy like Boba Fett, Mr. Pew Pew Jetpack from our childhood,
super loner,
as someone who would want to build a community and sort of be the marshal of a town,
right? But he saw the value in it.
Yeah,
he saw the value in it. But I mean, we can't forget. Again, it's like when we're looking at Anakin and Darth Vader, we can't forget these are awful people that have done and continue to do awful things. Yes, he worked to get rid of spice and slavery and things like that. Okay, cool, great. But, you're still not, the elected mayor of Mos Espa at this point. You're still the fucking godfather of Mos Espa, which means you're still dealing in some other crimes. There's some other shit happening behind the scenes. You have other criminal elements who are paying you tribute for their criminal activities. So let's not get it twisted and think that on any level Boba Fett is a good guy, because he's building this criminal community. If anything, he's just a better businessman who has gotten to the point where he doesn't want to have to do these things, and he'd rather pay people to do the things that he doesn't want to do anymore.
And I like the way he won Chrysanthemum over. So somebody, another guy from his profession saying, look, man, you can work for guys who don't care about you, or you can work for me.
Sure. Yeah, he's a nice crime boss. Yeah. Of course. Sure.
But he's still a crime boss.
I would have preferred that he stay a bounty hunter, but this is his story. I didn't write it. It's not my story. This is the story of Boba Fett. And for the most part, I'm okay with it. It's not my favorite. I love Boba Fett. If you look around my room here, you'll see that love of Boba Fett as the bounty hunter. But Book of Boba Fett, I think I would do the same thing. Had I been in his boots, I think I may have gone the same route. So I can't be too harsh. We all just want a cushy retirement, right? I mean, you don't want to work until you fall over dead. We all want a cushy retirement. Tony, what are your thoughts on that?
I think, when you spend a relatively speaking long time partially being digested by the beast, it changes your outlook on things, and you might decide you don't want to have that life anymore. So I totally get that, and I'm okay with it.
You could almost say it's a metaphor for marriage.
I'm not married, I'm not going to say that.
I wouldn't say that because my lovely wife listens to the show. So I wouldn't say that. I'm just saying some people may say that being in a long-term relationship is very much like being slowly digested over 1,000 years in the belly of the Sarlacc. Some people would say that. I'm not one of those people. I'm just saying some people.
Honestly, it kind of gave, like when I was watching that when it first came out, it was kind of giving me and I don't know, I know we all have other fandoms outside of Star Wars. It very much was giving me Red Hood vibes when he first came back and was trying to remodel the Gotham crime lords and we're still gonna do crime, but we're not gonna target children and we're not gonna do these things, and I want to be we're still not good,
right?
But we're gonna be better than we were. And so that kind of gave me that vibe. And I mean, again, I'm okay with it. Do your thing. Now, when I was first announced Book of Boba Fett, did I think, okay, we're going to get more of his backstory? We're going to get we're going to get to see more of him being a badass. Not that we didn't get some of him being a badass.
Sure.
Yeah. And would I have liked that a little bit more? Probably. But I didn't have a problem with the way it went.
And at the end of the day, we got to see Boba Fett riding a Rancor through the town, and I don't think that was on anyone's Boba Fett bingo card. It certainly wasn't on mine. But to see it, it's pretty impressive. Why are we talking about the Book of Boba Fett, by the way? We went down the
you're the one who went down this tangent.
we were talking about John Boyega, and we went over to the Disney Plus, the merits of a Disney Plus show versus a movie. Let me ask you, would you think Finn would be a good choice for a Tales style show, or would you want something more like a full Disney Plus series for him?
Honestly, what I like, if Boyega wants to come back,
if
what I would love to see, given the timeline and everything else, although I don't know exactly where in the timeline this would fit, so I'm curious about that. Like, how about we get Wim growing up a little bit more from Skeleton Crew, and he goes off and wants to be a pilot, and Finn's one of the people training him.
That'd be
leading that crew.
Especially as someone who was not an orphan, but he was stolen from his family. So I think he would have a good bond with those kids. Similar life experience, as it were.
All right, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I could see that. All right.
Now again, I don't know enough whether or not the timing makes sense for that. But
Kathleen, if you're watching, pay the man.
Yeah, she does. She hangs out. She watches. They have we have one viewer right now, and I think it's probably Kathleen Kennedy.
For sure.
Or her lawyers.
Sure. Or her, most likely her lawyers. Honestly, for me, as we're watching these episodes this week, I want to see a Tales of R2-D2. I want to see a Tales of the Droids. Because as much as we've seen, if you think about it, we've seen 3PO and R2 everywhere. I mean, in every series, they show up. I don't know if there's a series that or a film that we haven't seen R2 and 3PO. They were in the Bad Batch. Did they show up in the Bad Batch?
No.
I
didn't. Okay. I couldn't recall.
I think they're in one episode of Rebels early on. They meet the Ghost crew.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Bad Batch ever crossed paths with them. That was kind of a stretch. Yeah, like how would these two meet, kind of thing. So that one, Andor, again, barring anything unforeseen,
anything new, yeah.
I don't think they're going to cross paths because you got a quick cameo for 3PO and Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
But again, unless they deliberately do something with Jimmy Smits, I don't know how you get Andor and 3PO R2 to connect.
Right. But they're pretty ubiquitous, those two. We kind of know 3PO's origins. I mean, we've basically been following 3PO around. I mean, was he built from scratch, or, what was his life like before Anakin repaired him, or was he built from scratch? We don't know. As far as I know, we don't know. But it's R2-D2. He's the one that has some pretty major gaps in his history. And again, I am not up on any of the new books that have come out. And there's been so many books that in the EU that have been decanonized. But I think in canon, how far back do we go? We don't have R2's origin story, as far as I know.
No, the earliest we ever see of R2 is in Phantom Menace when he's on the Queen's ship.
Right.
So we don't know when was he purchased? How long was he on that ship? He just showed up and we instantly go, oh, that's R2-D2.
Right. And was he assembled on Naboo? Did he come out of a droid factory somewhere else? Was he purchased by the Royal House of Naboo who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? But I would love to see a Tales of the Droids.
Oh, absolutely. And R2, absolutely. We need more on him. But I mean, there's others too. Like I want to see a backstory for K2. I want to see a backstory for L3. Like, yeah, give me these. Like, and they don't have to be, whole. Like, you don't need a whole movie about it. But just give me 20, 30 minutes, and just tell me their story.
They seem to, with the Tales, the tales do seem to revolve on light side and dark side. There's like usually a good guy and a bad guy that they're talking about. So maybe we could do something like R2 and IG-88, you know, because their paths do cross. And in the EU, IG-88 had a very, very interesting story. The whole IG series had a very, very interesting story, and I loved it. I thought it was great.
Do you remember the old Droids cartoon from the 80s, right after Return of the Jedi? That was a great, it would almost be great to almost reboot that, but sort of, because the problem was after Return of the Jedi, we didn't know there was going to be any more Star Wars. So technically that show was set before A New Hope and obviously before the prequel trilogies existed.
Right.
So we follow these adventures with 3PO and R2 before they meet Luke Skywalker, was sort of the way it was pitched.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be funny now to do a Tales of the Droids and almost do a homage to that old Droids show where you follow 3PO and R2 around for like a 3-episode arc and they go through, you know, an adventure maybe while they were under Captain Antilles' care.
Yeah, I mean, because that would, I mean, you've still got that gap of time, you know, but yeah, like how did, well, I mean, we can kind of parse together how 3PO got there to Antilles, but again, it like R2, where was he before his service to Naboo? I'd love to see it. And then IG-88, I would love for them to do a complete, they won't do it, but I would love for them to do a full-on page-by-page retelling of his story, because it's just so good. You know, built as a military assassin droid, escapes from the lab that he was constructed in, becomes his bounty hunter, goes on adventures, and then uploads his personality to the Death Star and becomes the Death Star moments before Luke blows it up. Like,
actually, I thought it was the second Death Star.
I think it was the first. I thought it was the first one.
Okay, because I remember they was talking about he was having fun.
Was it the second one?
He was having fun targeting the rebel ships out at Endor. You know how like they were picking.
Oh, was it the second one then?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because we did see yeah, we'll have to look it up, because we did see. We don't see, well, oh yeah, because we saw, because we saw IG-88 for the first time in Empire. That's right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because in the book it was around the time of Jedi.
It says he was destroyed in 4 ABY. So
yep, 4 ABY, that would do it. But again, that story's not. I don't think that's canon anymore.
Unfortunately, no,
it's not, with him being uploaded to the fucking Death Star. I mean, how cool is that? How cool is that?
It was a great way to tie a character that we don't, you saw in one movie that doesn't show up in another, but you know, in, like you said, just to have him represented casually in the Battle of Endor was like, oh, that's a fun little thing. You know,
right.
That's the some of those tales, the bounty hunters and stuff like that. Again, it's not enough to do a full on movie of. Barely enough to maybe do a Disney Plus series, which is really just a movie chopped up into chapters. But something in like the Tale.
Yeah, the Tale series is perfect.
Tale series is perfect for it.
Absolutely perfect for that. Okay. So these episodes, quick little bits of backstory here. The logo was blue. I'm sure everybody noticed this. Normally it's just that yellow. This time it was blue. That was just a nod to R2-D2. They did that as just a little homage to our favorite little astromech droid. And then, you know, Crash and I, you know, we know about R2-KT. You know, this droid was referred to as QT-KT.
She has a slightly different paint job. And
yes.
It wasn't the direct reference, but go on. She was
inspired. She was inspired by R2-KT. But she's just she is a separate astromech droid. And that was just a production call. They didn't want to have two droids with the R2 designation in the same episode at the same time. They thought it might be a little bit too confusing. You know, but of course, you know, R2KT, she pops around throughout the Clone Wars, and we see her in live action for the first time in the sequel trilogy. And for those that don't know, R2KT is a droid that was built to honor the memory of Katie Johnson. And Katie Johnson was the young daughter of Albin Johnson, who was the founder of the 501st Legion, the premier Star Wars costuming club on planet Earth. Arguably, a pretty cool organization. But she was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. Unfortunately, she did pass at a very, very young age. And what was interesting was that she had mentioned to Albin that she, wished that she could have a droid to watch over her like R2 watched over Padme, and so the Droid Builders Club, they got wind of that, and they did what the Droid Builders do. They organized the community. They scrounged for spare parts. They built stuff. They CNC'd things. This was pre 3D printing, and they really pooled their resources to present Katie with her own droid. And it was by her side until the day she passed. And then now Katie, R2KT, goes around to multiple events, lots of like pediatric cancer wards, children's hospitals, things like this. And I believe, Crash, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there's a picture of Katie under the dome of R2KT. Like if you open up the dome, I think there's a photo.
I've never actually seen inside of the one Albin built, but it could be. I've never looked that closely. And the droid builders alone, if you're ever lucky enough to go to a convention where they have a big representation, I was just at MegaCon a couple weeks ago, and they had this huge booth. It's like a car club. These guys, you would think everybody wants to build R2D2, and there's a lot of R2s there.
Sure.
But it's funny when you see the variety of droids that these guys come, because each droid ends up being like the identity of the person who built it.
Right.
And one of the things I liked in this episode is that we got to see, it wasn't just R2 R series droids like our QT.
Right.
There was an R4. There was a one droid, BZ got converted. I think he was an R5 maybe, but there was one droid that got converted in C4 was the R5, and he got the heavy, the laser. Yeah, it was like the James Bond gadgets, where each droid had a specific. And they're assembling the team. They're like, "You're going to get a welding torch. You're going to get a man." And you're like, "Okay." At some point, each droid's like gimmick. R2 gets like the super, deluxe set of
super jets. Yeah,
and you're like, okay. It was just great watching it. Like, okay, every one of these gadgets is going to play a significant part.
Of course, and I loved how they all had like the caution striping that corresponded to whatever gadget they had, like that location on their frame. I thought that was kind of a cool little touch. Like not really low key though.
Part.
Right. Like, yeah, this is the part that's going to fuck shit up. So yeah, please be careful. But no, it was fun to see these droids and, actually like catch some feels over like when BZ got sucked out into hyperspace.
Oh,
it's like, that was rough. That was rough. I mean, R2 went on a suicide mission. He's got plot armor, so we know he's good. But BZ was like, oh man, I thought C4 would get taken out before BZ, but I don't know.
I like that the droids, all throughout Star Wars, we see droids everywhere, and there's always sort of that. They're viewed as like the loyal pet or the companion thing. It was interesting to see in a case with the commander, the colonel. I'm like whack. I'm like the whack. I was getting his rank wrong. Gascon was just dismissing them as just
out of hand.
Out of hand. Kind of like you and Louis, who talked about how like there were certain officers in the military that don't get to know you. They only refer to you by your rank and the number to them. It's funny to see the droids sort of kind of stand up for themselves and say, "Look, we're on this mission, but you got to show us a little respect too."
Yeah, absolutely. And I just, I think I have, let me switch over to it. I've got, speaking of the markings, there's the concept art marking. So, So Tony, let me ask you, this is your first time seeing these episodes. What are your thoughts on seeing these droids really taking on more of a personal type of mission, and then Gregor? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Gregor as well.
Well, I really hope that we have not seen the end of Gregor. I mean, it sounds like we might have, which that is what it is. As far as the droids are concerned, I mean, this is the first time that we've seen this to this scale on the good side. I remember there was an episode early on where there was a evil droid that was sent in as like a
spy with
sabotage artist.
Oh yeah, that's right. What a jerk.
Goldie.
Yeah. That was an epic fight though.
Mm-hmm. So it was nice to see, the Jedi and use this to their benefit. I mean, unfortunately, the arc is kind of boring. But it was an interesting story. It was good to see them, be relatively independent and do their own thing. Especially because there's a good section of the episode where they're basically like, yeah, fuck the colonel, like he's an idiot. We're just gonna do it our way. Right. I really do wish in this particular instance that we had more of a voice for the droids. I mean, obviously in this case we have Whack, and he can voice out to that frustration of, hey, we're not just fucking droids, we're more than that. You have to treat us with the respect and all that. And I like that there was somebody there to vocalize that. The voice is kind of annoying, but it is what it is. That's okay. And honestly, like if they wanted, if we end up doing a Tales of the Droids and they want to give us more D Squad, I'm cool with that. I'd like to see more of that.
So Tony, you're saying you want more of the D?
Absolutely.
All right.
Bring on the D.
I like your confidence. I
Yes.
like your confidence. All right. Bring on the D. One other little tidbit that I found very, very interesting was about Gregor's helmet and the tally marks on it. Not in fact tally marks. I mean, they might be, but the design choice is that they were the hash marks. They were inspired by Boston Bruins goalie Gary Cheevers, who stenciled on his mask to denote the stitches he would have gotten had he not been wearing protective gear. So it makes you wonder, I mean, are those the marks that Gregor thought that he would have gotten had he not been wearing a bucket? Or are those missions? Are they droids? Are they other life forms? Who knows? But I thought that was interesting. And then of course the digital camo pattern that's on there is pretty cool too.
And it's interesting. Gary Cheevers is a famous goalie for the Bruins. I'm a big hockey. Yeah, I grew up playing hockey. Goalie masks have become a sort of art form, not
okay.
Pilot helmets. Rebel pilots get to have some like cool artwork on them. Sabine Wren, and I guess, is an influence on some of the guys on the Rogue One helmets. Supposedly, and it was interesting that a clone, we've seen them decorate the nose of their gunships,
which is awesome. Yeah,
which is awesome. But the idea that they would actually start, and Rex is a prime example. Those Jedi guys aren't standard issue, but it's part of his personality, and he wants it on his armor. So it's interesting watching the clones, almost like a hockey goalie. They incorporate their helmet as part of their personality.
Yep. Well, and then look at what is it? Waxer. Waxer had Numa painted, a little cartoon of Numa. I mean, it's the individuality of the clones was really, really cool to see. This was something else that I found in the concept art that I thought was really, really cool. And it's those details that let you know that the people that create this show, they're us. They are fans like we are. And they put these little Easter eggs in there, and it's just these bits of signage. There's a place called the Land O Capes. So there's a cape store, Land O, like for Lando. Mm-hmm. There's the Admiral snack bar. It's a frap. Dr. Evazan's cosmetic surgery. Really? And of course, if you're not familiar, Dr. Evazan, we get to see him, his ugly mug in episode 4. My friend doesn't like you. I don't like you either.
Well, it just makes it look lived in. A lot of sci-fi, even before Star Wars, everything was sort of pristine and clean because they just built it from scratch.
Yeah,
and didn't have time to cosmetically make it look dingy. The idea that this the simple walls in this in a no-name town that the audience would pick up on. Oh, hey, somebody's tagged that wall.
Right.
And just the level of, I was impressed by a couple things, was the level of filth in the town.
Oh yeah, especially like in that alley where they were eating out of the trash.
Yeah, that was just, especially being at Gascon's scale, like some of those bugs were just ginormous.
And he went for it though. That little dude went for it, and he was munching out on some old crusty bread. This sign here, the Abfar Junior Degenerate Club, no Wookiees.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's a nice touch.
And
Adopt a Wampa.
And you wouldn't even pick up, they go by so fast on screen that you wouldn't get. That's something.
Yeah, you don't see
the animators. It's more for their amusement. They'll know I worked on that wall, and that's the thing I put in there. That's a little Easter egg for me.
Yep. And that's exactly it. That's their way of signing it, putting their little personal touches on it. There was another group of signs. I thought these were pretty cool too. They're based on classic LucasArts adventure games. So there was the Kawak and Monkey Island, because Monkey Island was a huge LucasArts game, and some people don't put those two things together. And to be honest, when we were watching Skeleton Crew, I didn't make the Monkey Island connections, but there were so many. Like revisiting Skeleton Crew and having played, I've never played the second one, but I played the first Monkey Island, and it's like, oh, okay, there they are. But initially, it goes over your head because you don't think Monkey Island and Star Wars, but it's all out of LucasArts. So it's just all right. So Crash, what are your thoughts on this as a rewatch? This is probably your 15th time, right?
Yeah. I'll be honest, this is like my least favorite. I remember when this first aired, and the first episode, you're like, okay, cool, we're gonna have a droid mission. Artoo gets to go on a mission by himself, and then I was like, okay, cool, we're on this planet and we're just wandering through the desert. By the third week, I was like, dear God, are we done with the damn droids? And then, oh no, we're not. We got one more episode, because it's a lot like the 3PO Artoo episode where they had the Gulliver's Travel episode, adventures, and somehow they got to find their way back to Commander Wolf. There's a great shot of KT.
Yeah.
And it was just like, okay, I get it. You built this arc around a bunch of droids that can't speak and an annoying little frogman who can. I really thought they could have condensed some of this stuff and so that this could have been maybe a 3-episode instead of a 4-episode arc. I'm being generous. I could have done this in 2.
Yeah. I think they probably wanted to do it though, because there's only 20 episodes in this season. So they had these 4-episode blocks that they were able to do something with. So they
and just by the end, you're like, oh, look, Obi-Wan and Anakin, where the hell have they been for because you think about every episode you had to wait a whole week for, by 3-4 weeks, a month went by. And we're just seeing Anakin and Obi-Wan again for the first time. You're just like, oh, dear God, I miss you boys.
Yeah.
But there's another great, we're talking Easter eggs about the wall. Did you catch the Aquelish in the town? And it was a literal walrus man.
Yeah, action figure.
Action figure. They straight up did the orange vest.
Yep. Yeah,
Dave is one of us, and he when he does the character designs on some of these things, I mean, he'll pull I think earlier there was one, or no, it's going to be next week. You guys watch the infamous blue snaggletooth.
Yes,
he's going to do one of those. Nothing's off limits with Dave. The old canon, the Kenner line. I mean, there's just some great. Dave is an Easter egg king.
Well, because he is he grew up playing with them, and
Mhm.
now he gets to play with them and share that with all of us, his friends. And it's great. And it's like when we see him, when the Mandalorian came out and they were doing the behind the scenes videos of the Mandalorian, and seeing him on the volume with the cast in costume, surrounded by this giant realistic screen, you could tell that he was the happiest person on planet Earth. And he does not take any of this for granted, because he's now playing with life-size action figures, and it's the coolest thing ever.
My favorite Easter egg, and I don't know if you guys don't do a lot of Disney stuff. If you ever rode Star Tours,
No.
the old Star Tours, okay. When they're on the shuttle and they're leaving the Separatist ship, they run into that comet field in hyperspace.
Yeah,
that is almost literal pull from the original Star Tours experience. Like you're on the ship in the ride, and you go through a comet asteroid field, and it was just one of those, again, like Dave's a geek just like us, and I was like, you sly little dog, you know, when comments, it's exactly how it was on the ride, and you bump into things, and it shakes you around, and you move on to the next part of the story. But I was just knew the audience would instantly get the reference.
Well, and the space station where they were doing their conference, that was based off of something from Star Tours as well.
Yeah, that was the hub.
That was the hub for it, right? That's
where Star Tours and all the ships go in and out of.
Yeah. So yeah, and we even see, I think we see a couple of times, we may have already, we've already gone past this, but the Rex droid from Star Tours, voiced by, good old Pee Wee Herman, R.I.P. We see him a couple times in the Clone Wars, I believe.
Yeah,
I think we've already passed both of this, the appearances he's had. But it's just, and then now it's like, now we're seeing the flip side of that, because now we've got Hondo at Galaxy's Edge, which is just like the coolest thing ever. And I want to go. We need we need sponsors. We need people to sponsor our show, give us money so we can go on a trip to Galaxy's Edge and do a show.
I'll let a little secret out. I am planning a future Crash's Corner segment. I do over online for the Facebook page. I'm going to Disneyland with my family for May 4th, and I am going to record a bunch of stuff for you, a little video postcards for you boys, and I'm going to give you like a heads up.
No, thank you. No, thank you. I just keep that shit to yourself. I have no desire to see it. I don't want to see it, but I want to see all of it. So, damn it. How many times have you been?
Oh God, since Hollywood Studios opened.
That's too many.
Yeah. There was a stretch where I was working in TV production, and my family's a big Disney. We were going when my sister was like 4 or 5 years old. Now as adults, she and I sometimes we go on our own, and we have we're Disney adults. We got grown up money, and we play like we would have if we were kids. So I've been to Galaxy's Edge a few times. I've been to both the East Coast and West Coast parks. This time we're going for the after. They have a special. They just announced the new after hours Star Wars night at Disneyland. I'm going to have some content for you guys for that. I'm going to show you around. Because I think that's something, people who love Star Wars, are, like you said, you guys have never been there. This will make you want to go. I promise.
Well,
you're saying as if we don't already want.
Yeah, we already want to go. Come on. We are planning on going. Why did I do that? In October of 2026.
Okay.
So that is our plan, but we're going to be going to the one in California.
That's where I'm heading.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, Disneyland.
Yeah,
they do a May 4th. They call it Seasons of the Force, and they have an after hours night. There's a new projection show they're going to be doing in Black Spire. It's going to be fantastic. I can't wait to show you guys and our listeners and friends on Facebook that we've been picking up on Swarzy Curious. There's going to be some great stuff coming up.
Oh my God, I want to go so bad. I'm looking forward. Yeah, because we're big Nightmare Before Christmas fans too. and we've heard that Disneyland really goes hard on the Nightmare Before
yeah.
Christmas thing for Halloween. So
The whole Haunted Mansion gets an
Yeah.
an overlay, they call it, but it's just like an upgrade.
and that's great and everything, but I'll be in Black Spire Outpost. So just don't even fucking look for me. That's where I'm gonna be. Oh God, I want to go so bad. So again, hopefully this is, through all of our fine listeners and supporters out there, hopefully we can generate some funds, or Kathleen will send us an invitation, give us a few tickets, and we can head out there. So fingers crossed.
Let me ask you guys what about Gregor.
Yeah.
And you're a big fan of the clones and the Mando culture and all that.
Mm-hmm.
What did and being former military, what did you think about him being sort of, I want to say, enslaved almost? The Sulstan, I never got his name. The guy that owned that shop, had the armor. He knew what he was.
Yeah, definitely an indentured servant. I don't know if we would go so far as to call him a slave. But again, it's an outer rim planet, and we knew slavery was a thing. But he was definitely
a little bit of like a little bit of memory loss, a little PTSD.
Yeah. I would like to know more about, the incident. Like the battle. Oh, what was the name of it? Like Shahish, something like that. But the battle that they were talking about, I know that was in a free comic book day comic where they covered that battle, but I don't think it's canon anymore. But they reference it. Well, just like the planet that they were on, Abafar or something like that. That was a Tales of the Jedi novelization planet, if I remember correctly. So what is it? Sarish, that's right. So again, like you said, this is Dave. A lot of things that Dave probably loved became decanonized during the Disney transfer. And this, this big, holocron consolidation project. So this is his way of rescuing things from the EU, and it's just these little things, like you said, he's the king of the Easter eggs, and there were so many in this. But anyway, the PTSD was very real for that guy. But you see how quickly he gets everything back. But we do see this is a recurring theme that Dave doesn't let go of. He's really cognizant of it. We get to see it done really, really well in Rebels. It's just maybe PTSD was a little bit too heavy, I think, for the Clone Wars. But I mean, look at what happened on Umbara. They didn't need to talk about PTSD. It was obvious the way that our boy Rex fell to the ground, and so as someone who is diagnosed with PTSD and who lives with PTSD, I am very happy with the way that Dave handles these things, because he doesn't pretend that these things don't exist. He doesn't pretend or try to gloss over the fact that these clones are, say what you want, but they are, for all intents and purposes, human beings. They're clearly, he illustrates that each one of them is an individual, despite all being grown from, the same, bounty hunter spooge. They're individuals. They're as individual as you and I. They just happen to look alike, so he does a great job of portraying that. So yeah, tip of the hat always to Dave for, I don't know if he's got military members in his family, or if he just really appreciates veterans and military members, or if he's just, just got a lot of empathy, but I've always been very happy. It's why I'm drawn to the Clone Wars, because of the way that it's handled. I don't like all the Jedi stuff, because I'm just kind of like, I'm over lightsabers, but I get it. That's what fills seats. That's what sells toys. So you got to have the Jedi. I would like to see more clones and war in the Clone Wars. But these last few seasons we get a lot. And there's still so much more to come. Speaking of which, your homework, Star Warriors, it's going to be a little bit of a different lineup here. You're going to be watching season 5, episode 1, 14, 15, and 16 in that order. Watch episode 1 first of season 5, and then season 5, episode 14, 15, and 16. That is going to be for your homework. You guys have anything else as we just before we do our pimping?
I'm off next week. I'm going to be doing some more Crash's Corner workout at C2E2. I'm going to go see John Boyega and some other people. And this is, I'll tell you now, because I'm going to miss the session. I'll be on the road. This is a great arc. I mean, this is just chef kiss.
Yeah.
Star Wars,
Sith and Mandalorians, yes,
Sith and Mandalorians, and a heartbreak at the end, and it's just
gets heavy.
You're gonna enjoy this one a lot. Like we talked about Umbara, we hyped that up, and it didn't disappoint. This will not disappoint either.
Yeah, and Tony, just so you know, there's just like moving forward, the Clone Wars is just a trail of tears at this point. So just keep the tissue handy.
Well,
there's lighter episodes.
There's a point that you kind of have to just know that that's coming, because we
look at what's ahead.
It's the opposite of the plot armor. Like, you know what's coming at the end, so you've got to get there.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, at the time we didn't know this was the final season. Like Dave was getting into some heavy stuff, and we were like, okay, let's roll. And then after the Disney sale happened, and then Cartoon Network pulled the plug on the show, and it was just like, that's it. We're ending on that.
Yeah.
Give me more, Daddy.
And he did.
Mm-hmm.
And he did. He gave us 2 more great seasons. Short, but still great. Yeah, looking forward to it. It is going to be good. Hey, while you're there, see if you can get Boyega to do a little promo for us.
I'm working on it. I got some plans to spread the merch around. Just kind of like, okay, got a thing. Maybe make.
But yeah, if you can get him to say something like, "Hey, you're listening to Star Wars SafeSpace," or invite him on the show. Ask him if he wants to come on. It's going to be a minute before we get to the sequels, but
yeah, there's some people I'm kind of like putting feelers out to that I know from the convention circuit, and I'm like, once we get to their part of the timeline, I'm like, oh, I'd love to have some conversations with these people, but that's part of my job with the Parma Flyer. I'm going to use my experience on the convention circuit, and I want to bring it to the show, and maybe down the line, maybe bring somebody in for a little chat. We'll see.
And you need a droid. You need a droid. So when
I
you
got a droid,
I know, but you need a full size. You need a full size astromech to go with you.
That would be that would be fun. Snips would love it. Yeah, we'd have to lug that guy around.
I mean, it only weighs like a couple 100 pounds. I mean, it's not that bad. I mean, it's not that bad.
I remember I had to help a friend when we got our first Artoo in the Cleveland area, and we had to lift it. We were doing a hospital visit, and a guy from Columbus drove up to do this hospital visit with us, and he brought his Artoo unit. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna need some help lifting this thing into." Oh, my back!
Yeah,
those things are not lightweight. This was in the earlier. It was all in metal. Some of the things you guys can do now with 3D printing and lighter materials is amazing. This was all steel and fiberglass, and oh my god.
Yeah, but now I mean it's like a whole, like I've seen like the early like droid builder like build videos and things like that. Some people were building the frames out of wood, some people were doing it out of steel or aluminum or something, but most of it was steel. And then all of the gears and the electronics inside, especially like the motor control stuff.
They need a pit crew to keep these things running.
They do. It's very, very impressive. And what I like too about them is that the operators, you normally never even know who the operator is. They're usually hanging back somewhere. They're off the side. You never see the operator. The one guy I saw, we did a troop at the Cleveland Science Center a few years ago. And he was able to operate it with his phone. So he had it linked up to his phone, and he held his phone behind his back and was operating R2 that way. And so he wasn't even in anything that identified him as one of the R2 builders. He just looked like a regular patron.
I used to do a gig with, again, a couple gigs with a guy who had some of the early droids. And as a Rebel pilot, it was always funny. I used to catch myself talking to this inanimate object. Like it was a person. Yeah, I would, like if you were running the droid, I would look down at your R2 unit and say, oh, we're going to go over here now. Yeah, I'm making eye contact with the droid because everybody watching me was, I think I'm talking to the Rebel, but really he's talking to you. And the play. Disney's got some droids now. They have they built their own droids for Galaxy's Edge. Right now, Luke Skywalker is at Disneyland with R2-D2. And if you see some of the videos of that, it's just so much fun to watch. There's droids, there's characters. It's a playground for Star Wars fans. And if you get the chance to go, I highly recommend you go.
I don't know, like I don't have much soul left, but any soul that I do have left, I will gladly sell it for a ticket, for even a weekend to Galaxy's Edge, and I will be able to pass into the Force a happy nerd. We'll just say that. All right, that is going to do it for us this week, folks. But before we head on out, we do have some obligatory pimpage. Crash is the only one that's representing. I'm representing Star Wars. I've got my AT-AT Blueprint shirt on.
Oh, there you go.
But I couldn't. It looks like we've got a cool, cute little Anakin chibi type of Anakin in timeout. Is that what's going on?
Yep.
Yeah. Child murder would usually kind of get someone put in the corner for a timeout.
If I stood up at the bottom, it says "Calm down, Anakin."
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that would have solved a lot of written and directed by George Lucas. There you go. There's your trilogy.
Calm down, Anakin. Go sit in the corner. Love it. So if you'd like to cop one of those fancy shirts, not the Anakin one, but the cool Star Wars SafeSpace shirt, head on over to our website, circleofnerds.com/merch, and get you a fine t-shirt or a hoodie or whatever you would like. Of course, be sure to subscribe to all of our channels at the SWS show. And I keep forgetting, we've got the cool little circleofnerds.com/merch little graphic to put up there. Bada bing, bada boom. Very nice. And if you want to see what's coming up next on the timeline, we've got that listed on our website, circleofnerds.com/the-SWS show. So follow us on all the things. We're working to boost our online presence a little bit. It's just, a little crazy in the world, so it's difficult. None of us get paid for this, so this is a labor of love, and we love you for spending time with us and hanging out with us. Also, we do have a private Facebook group for the more discerning Star Wars aficionados. Actually, it's just for people who aren't assholes. So if you want to come and hang out with us and talk Star Wars in a non-toxic, low-sodium environment where you don't have to be afraid of someone shitting on you for your opinion, then look for Swarzy Curious on Facebook, on the Facebook group. So
answer the member questions.
Answer the member questions. You will not get in without answering the member questions. They're not hard. It's just commitments to not be a fucking doucher. That's basically it. So it's our way of trying to make sure that we weed out members of the fandom menace, because we don't want.
We're looking out for you guys.
Yep, we want you to have a nice, safe, comfortable place to come and talk about Star Wars or learn about Star Wars. Somewhere where you're comfortable and empowered to ask and say, I don't know this. Can you help me? And somebody will be able to help you there. We've got a bunch of nerds that know this shit inside and out. We've got the keeper of the holocron. So obviously you can just Google the shit yourself, but there's no fun in that. You want to ask the community and you want to get answers from the community. And that's what the Swarzy Curious Facebook group is about. So come check us out. And I think that's going to do it. So thank you so much for tuning in this week. Of course, always thanks to our veterans, active duty service members for all of your service and sacrifice. We absolutely appreciate you, and we acknowledge that a lot of the things that we're able to do wouldn't be possible without your service and your sacrifice. So as always, thank you. And if that's it, anybody got anything else?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
That's all I got.
All right, cool. All right. So that is going to do it. If we do this, we'll get that queued up. All right. So we're going to see you guys next week. Again, remember episodes 1, 14, 15, and 16 of season 5. Have a great week. We'll see you out there in the galaxy. And as always, remember, if nobody does anything nice for you, do something nice to yourself and we will see you guys next week. Bye.